The Fujicast is an independent loading zone production.
Sunday, 26th of April.
The Fujicast.
Do you have your sort of remote church session today, Kev? You go to church virtually now, of course, don't you, being a Sunday?
Yep. We've managed to get another webcam, so it's all a little bit more detailed now.
What do you mean? Well, there's like it's turning into a multicam thing now, is it?
It is. I've even ordered something that's going to take a while to come from America, so we can hopefully rig up my XT3 and use that as a webcam. You need some kind of special adapter.
Yeah, it's going to be like for the Americans won't understand this reference, but anybody in the UK understands. It's going to be like that Sunday songs of praise. Songs of praise. Songs of praise always used to mean to me one thing: weekend over, school is tomorrow. Yeah, that was true. Yeah. Actually, it's probably more like Vicar of Dibley than Songs of Praise, I have to say. Well, you're one. Welcome to the Daily Show, the Fujicast, a show about you, your photography, your life-making pictures, once weekly, now daily during lockdown. Weekends, our chance to play you longer-form interviews. Today, photojournalism, and a much-respected photojournalist from the UK, Ian Forsyth. Last weekend, Kev, I talked to Adam Gray, a British PJ, now working out of New York City, and he was talking about the strong access he has to, just to be able to make pictures. Did it surprise you to learn that he felt we're in some respects thwarted as photojournalists in this country, that we're somehow prevented from doing our jobs? Censored, if you like. That might be too strong a word.
Yeah, I don't think we're censored, but yeah, I know I wasn't surprised by what he said though. I think there's a lot of we're free press and all that kind of stuff, but it's certainly a direction of sorts, isn't there?
Do you think the celebrity? I meant to ask this of Ian. We kind of touched on celebrity culture, but we didn't properly. I was going to ask him. Do you think the fact that people have got absolutely bored rigid with celebrity, stuff in papers, that's why and when celebrities bleat on about, oh, you've invaded my life, quick, take another picture. They don't all talk like that, obviously. That we've kind of withdrawn press rights because of that nonsense. Is that?
I don't think the public have got bored of the celebrities. I think it's still rampant. I hate it, but it's cheap journalism, isn't it? Cheap content. Everybody wants to be a celebrity. Everybody wants attention. You rarely see the proper celebrities on these celebrity things.
Well, don't say that. You'll upset all the
celebrities.
You'll upset all those people from Made in Chelsea. Although they're probably proper celebrities, aren't they? I don't know. I've never watched it. What's a proper celebrity, Kev?
Well, somebody who I would watch and listen to. all the others who I wouldn't.
That's not. Don McCullin. That's about it then. Everybody else, not included.
Yeah, no, I hate all that stuff, I have to say. Celebrity bake-off, celebrity change shoes, celebrity pick your own nose, celebrity poke you in the eyes, celebrity swimming. They even had celebrity. Did you see this one? Oh my God, celebrity.
He's on one now. He's on one.
They went on the SAS. They went on the SAS course.
Oh, I didn't see it, but I know of it. Yeah.
And a whole load of celebrities who are not really celebrities, but perhaps were once and now aren't, and perhaps want to be more than they are, all being shouted at. And literally every other word was the F word, literally the F word. And that's another program I didn't like. And they it was just terrible, absolutely terrible. And it was prime time, like 9 o'clock on ITV or something. Oh,
what do you think it is about celebrities that has made us so fascinated? I'm a bit like you. I don't really get it.
Well, I liked it when they categorised them A-list and B-list. I thought that was good. Yeah, you've got proper celebrities, and then the rest are just wannabe, attention-seeking people that will do absolutely anything for a bit of attention. And then when they get the attention, they complain about it. I know. And I'm like, I really.
Don't take a picture of me. No, please, no. Oh, left side, please. If you're going to do it, this is my better side. Ricky Gervais, and not obviously I'm not suggesting. If you've got kids listening at over your ear, over your shoulder at the moment, with their ears all perked up for this, you must say to them, don't watch it. But Ricky Gervais made a series of films that seemingly are in his pajamas on YouTube, where he has a real pop at celebrities and celebrity culture, which was I can't help feeling he was he'd maybe had a couple of glasses of falling down juice. Maybe not. But as I was watching him, he was very, very funny.
Maybe that's what we should do for the 100th episode,
What's that?
which is coming up in, 5 days?
Yeah.
Maybe we should just make sure we've had loads of wine beforehand.
We'll have to record the one in the evening then. All right, Kev, what are we going to do? No, that would be socially unacceptable, Kev.
Unedited. Get me in all my angry glory.
What about... well, maybe what we should do is have the day off and just let Gemma and Sam present the 100th show.
I'll watch I'm a Celebrity get me off this mountain, wherever it is, beforehand. Yeah, that's not a bad idea, actually, about Sam and Gemma.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea, but I'm not sure we should do it for the 100th show. It would seem wrong, wouldn't it, to not to turn up to our 100th party?
We could call them the Inglorious
I beg your pardon?
That's a film, isn't it?
Is it? No, I've never seen that one. I don't know what.
Type it into Google.
I will do. Right, question. We've just got one question. In fact, it's not so much a question; it's more a point. And I do have one question and one point. Denise Bass from Rhode Island. And by the way, her website is denisebass.com. There's a reason for telling you that. I've been a diehard fan of you both, saw your show and your show since I discovered the Fujicast 6 months ago. This is my first time writing. I just saw Neil's Facebook post reminding us how important it is to ask questions and share stories during these scary times in order to keep the show going. So I'm motivated to write because the thought of no Fujicast is, well, don't even go there. Well, it's very kind of you, Denise. I don't have a question right now. I just want to share my current situation. I'm one of those photographers who has a day job, shoots on nights and weekends. I've been making some money the last 10 years with weddings and portraits and real estate. I don't make enough to support myself, but I do make enough to support that gas problem. Denise wrote, basically, Kev, how she's always loved photography but couldn't afford the financial risk to take the leap. And that is the difficult bit, isn't it? Long and short is, Kev, just prior to lockdown, a friend of hers who owns an ad agency invited her to take that leap of faith and go join her. And Denise took the job, left her old one, took that job, and then this virus hit town. So she's not even sure there'll be a job to start. But she talks a lot about a little voice in her head saying, it's the right time. And it does sound like that to me, Denise. It sounds like it is the start of your new chapter. Do you remember, what was the voice in your... We've heard the story many times, obviously, about you making the decision to take that leap. But did you have a little voice in your head that was saying, come on, Kev, be brave, do it. I know you're earning far more money working in the city, but who needs money?
I don't think there was a little voice, really. It was all down to desperation to get out. I have to say, I just couldn't do that 9 to 5 any longer and all the commute. Yeah. That was the little voice. The little voice was, don't, just stop. Just go away, leave it, do something else.
Were you financially set when you started? Were you okay for a little while?
Oh, no. Bearing in mind we just bought the house, we just had a baby and all that kind of stuff, so it had to work. I think I remember, maybe it was like 12, 13 years ago, I think I had like 2 or 3 months worth of leeway. Right. And yeah, so no, absolutely not. And I know you said, you used to earn far more in the city. I did earn, reasonable rates, but no more than perhaps I would on a good year shooting weddings.
Oh, really? I just had this idea that you were eating lunch out of a Porsche, a new Porsche that you bought each day or something.
No, I might have eaten lunch out of somebody else's Porsche occasionally, but not my own.
It's Monday. Sure. Should we take the green Porsche or the red one?
No, I worked at. Listen to this. This is what I used to do, funny enough. I used to work in Bank of England regulatory reporting. Which meant that I used to have to send all of the information to the Bank of England. I write the systems that send all the information to the Bank of England at the end of the day to ensure that the trades were legal and fair and all that kind of stuff.
That sounds very grown up.
It was very grown up. It was quite stressful. And so I dealt with the traders a lot. And they, who were, to a man and woman, invariably about 20 years younger than me. And some of them were, their bonuses and everything were millions, millions. But they brought the bank in millions, so fair play.
Yeah. And then they brought it down by millions, didn't they, years later?
Yeah, they did, yeah.
Anyway, Denise says, P.S. I blast the Fujicast through the speakers in the mornings before work. Even though my husband doesn't really listen to the show, I do catch him laughing at some of the things you both say. A couple of Mondays ago, I was running late and didn't have the time to listen. He said, where are Kev and Neil with the E today? See? He was missing us.
Oh, that's nice. Isn't that nice? I like that. I like that little story.
Hello, Mr. Bass.
Yeah.
Penny March. Well, it looks like more distancing is on the cards for a little while at least. Question for Kevin. I've started shooting street work alongside my portrait and wedding work as something to challenge myself more. I guess this will be when it all starts up again, this question. I'm trying to do more street portraits where I'm forced to interact. I wonder if you have any tips as to how I should go about this when it all starts again, is the caveat. I know you work very much hands-off, Kevin, but if you were to approach a commission where you had to take pictures of people going about their everyday, how would you even think about going about it yourself?
Okay, so if this is, I'm not sure if this is a question about street portraits, i.e. just going up to a stranger and saying, can I take your picture?
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah. So, well, that's the key, isn't it? You've got to have the confidence to do it. And typically, I would suggest that the people who look a little bit, I don't know, I want to say different, but, maybe they've got a Mohican or they've got, lots of tattoos or earrings or, beautiful hair or a hat or I don't know, whatever. But typically those people are like that because they like the attention it brings, right? So those people are usually the easiest ones, no matter how frightening they look. And I'm not saying everybody with a tattoo or earrings or Mohican or funny hair or anything is scary.
No, it did sound a bit like that.
I know. But yeah, so there's a lovely little Hoxton mini press book called, I can't remember what it's called now, it's in the back of the room, but I think it's just called Portraits of People of London or something.
Right. I think I've seen it, yeah.
It's beautiful.
I know,
really beautiful.
I know it, yes.
And they are just random people. Maybe I'll for Wednesday's book review, I'll dig that one out. And they're just regular, ordinary people. And the guy there's an introduction to the book where he explains how he got the process of going up to total strangers and speaking to them and everything. And yeah, it's actually something I would quite like to do as well, I must admit. And maybe that's something I'm going to put on my Be Braver list.
Yeah, it is a case of bravery. I mean, going back to, I've talked about this before, the Daytona portraits I did, People of Daytona. I made a little YouTube film about that, and I did find that I must have walked up to the first person a good few times before I found the first person I actually talked to, because it was just about making that first picture, really. And when I'd had the first yes, I thought, oh okay, all right then. And then I did get a few no's during the day, but I wasn't really bothered about the no's after that. In fact, when people said no, there was one guy in a flea market just outside Daytona who was running. It was a book stand. It was all, funny enough, it was a Trump book stand. And I went up to him and asked him if he eyed me very suspiciously, and it was almost like, who is this limey asking me to make pictures about a portrait, me in front of a Trump badge, and he was really quite rude to me, to be honest. But by that stage I was like, no, I was a bit, why not, whereas before I wouldn't have said boo to a goose. You find a bit of faith after asking the first couple. It's like diving off a high board, isn't it?
And the other thing to do is go with somebody else as well, so have somebody with you who so it doesn't look like you're just completely peculiar person by yourself. Have somebody with you who's maybe holding your bag or a tripod or something to make it look like it's a proper thing rather than just a random thing. And obviously it goes without saying, if you're going to be using these images for anything, then you must kind of speak to them and say, look, give me your email address, I'll send you a copy or whatever.
Yeah, the legality of it will differ in different countries, won't it? But essentially, are you just not allowed to, because they're on the street, aren't you allowed to are you allowed to make a portrait, aren't you? You don't have to have a model release from them.
No. Yeah, you're absolutely allowed to do it. But I'm just from the politeness point of view.
Oh, right, yeah.
You go up to somebody and say, I really love your hat.
Yeah.
Can I take a picture of you? And then they say, yeah. Well, you're going to say, great, give me your email address, or I'll give you my email address and email me and I'll send you a copy.
Why do you think the other person makes a difference, having somebody with you? Why does that make a difference?
Well, it just looks a bit more professional, doesn't it?
Oh, I see. All right.
It just looks like it's a proper thing rather than just a random person on the street.
In your case, maybe you should take somebody with a Mohican.
I should probably take somebody who doesn't look quite so angry.
Somebody
as me.
very, very frightening. So, I'm not going to say no. Yeah, you can take my picture.
I tell you what, I'm going to do that. That's you and I are going to do that, Neil. That's
really? Is that our coming out of the cold?
Yep.
Project. Should we film ourselves doing it?
No.
No? All right. Okay.
No.
Why not? You were very quick with a no there. Right.
We'll get someone else to film it.
Yeah, all right. Photojournalism. Now, I don't need to give you too much backstory on Ian Forsyth, as the chat we had reveals his army photographic past that led to him becoming a respected news photojournalist in the UK. What is interesting are his continuing comments about how much freedom photojournalists have in this country compared to others. A discussion, of course, I've now had with Kev, and yes, Adam Gray on the streets of New York last weekend, but the levels to Ian Forsyth's work are many and varied, including some very personal projects. Ian, just to clear this one up from the outset, your website is room2850.com. Why that?
It harks back to the day of Life magazine.
Right.
And what as a very young lad, youngster, I used to collect them and read them. And as my interest in photography grew, it was Life magazine and magazines of that type that had quite a big influence on the type of photography that I like to view and now like to try and do myself. Room 2850 was the room in the American office of Life magazine where all of the photographers, when they were in town, used to sit and meet to discuss projects or shoots they were going to do, kick ideas around, and that was the room that those ideas were born of some of those amazing stories that I'm sure we've all seen in Life magazine. And I watched some documentary ages ago, and as they mentioned the fact Room 2850, I thought that's quite a good name for what was a blog for me then, and then became my website because of that.
I wonder if Room 2850 still exists somehow. I wonder what it is now.
I don't know.
Who knows?
Idea. Probably been changed into apartments or something. Maybe.
Probably,
I don't know.
Yeah. They'll have no idea how important that room was. So you started your photographic career in the Army Photographic Unit, didn't you? Was that how it all started?
Yeah, that's right. I was in the Army for 22 years. For 16 of those years, I was the forward observer in the Royal Artillery. So we used to work alongside our infantry and armoured colleagues, up with them, do what they did. And when there was a requirement to bring down artillery fire, it was the responsibility of myself and colleagues like me to bring down that artillery fire. Throughout all of this, photography had been of an increase in interest to me, and I was taking pictures and I was enjoying it, and I was teaching myself black and white film development and all that good stuff. Darkroom in my bedroom at home, bin bags over the windows, all of that sort of business. And it was great. And then as I continued through my Army career, I became aware of the Army photographic trade, until which point I didn't even know it existed, to be fair. But it's a very small trade under the RLC, Royal Logistic Corps Cap Badge. And at the time that I was in, I think there was about 36 people total who'd all transferred from whatever units they were in and joined us or continued whatever careers they had from there as Army photographers, and that's what I did for the last 6 years of my career.
Now, you're a stringer now, a contributor for Getty Images News, which means your images generally go to who in terms of distribution? All
of the editorial subscribers to Getty Images globally would potentially have the sight of any pictures that I file down to the picture desk.
So that people understand, what exactly is a stringer? What does a stringer do, Ian?
Well, I'm a freelance photographer. So I work for myself. I'm responsible for my own books, my own tax returns, all that kind of self-employed stuff. But what I then do is I look around at my patch, which is North East England and North Yorkshire. And through the course of the year, I'll look through and I'll look at and I'll find out about, or I'll see, or I'll hear about all kinds of events, which I then take and think, okay, will this event that's happening this weekend be of interest to Getty Images? If I think so, then I'll go back to the person that I deal with on the picture desk and say, look, I've got this coming up at the weekend. What do you think? If they say, yes, we like that, we'll take that, then essentially that's the confirmation of me being a stringer for them for that day. So essentially you become staff for the duration of that job. So you get a wage, you get a shift fee, you get your mileage and expenses. You go and shoot the job, edit, caption, file, in the normal sort of way to get those pictures down to the picture desk and on the go on that distribution network for potential editorial clients to see. So the next day I could go and do a completely different job for somebody else. I'm not obligated by contract to Getty outside of that particular shift.
See,
if that makes sense.
You've very much got to be a journalist, haven't you? You've got to be sniffing out stories constantly. Never mind the photo bit, because you've got to provide yourself with your income. You've got to go find something that's interesting that you believe other people will buy into.
Yeah, absolutely. The vast majority of time as a freelance photographer working in the editorial world is exactly that. It's looking at local news, checking out local news websites, seeing what the national news is. Any big stories on a national level, is that illustrated on a local level, like local to me, geographically? Can I then drive to York and do it? Can I go to Leeds and do something? Is it happening in Newcastle, which represents that wider story that was on that big national issue? So all the time you're looking at things that are on to try and tie it in with that news agenda, that news sort of cycle.
Yeah, I would imagine that this period of photojournalism, there must be plenty of stories, plenty of things to talk about. We're living through unparalleled times, Ian, aren't we? Most of us who haven't lived through war, for example. So in the most, it's unparalleled. But in photojournalism, is it just another day at the office, or is it providing you stories that you otherwise thought you wouldn't have got? I'm sure it must be the latter.
It's very much the latter. It's very much. I mean, the issues that affect you on a day-to-day basis before coronavirus was even a thing are still relevant to a point. You know, the phone calls, the emails, the thinking of ideas, the follow-ups. But the subject matter right now is everything pretty much is surrounded by or in the all-encompassing sort of umbrella of coronavirus. So, all of the different things that people are doing, you're looking at these to try and represent that and document that and make a photographic record of these things. Even if it's quite a benign thing in the scheme of this virus, all of it adds to a collective photographic record of this particular time in our history. And this particular time in our history, quite clearly, is unprecedented, hopefully never repeated again. But in 5 years, 10 years, 50 years time, when the historians and education and people look back on this particular time, they need to see photographic pictures that truly represent what it was like and what was happening.
But I know from a conversation you had with a good friend of ours, Giles, friend of the show, that you're concerned about access. And you're talking about the next 50, 100 years just a moment ago, and that was one of your concerns. And I spoke with a British photojournalist now based in New York for a recent interview, and he mooted this point of access, Ian, that he felt that American institutions and the American public, they understand the need for access far more than what he experienced in the UK. And I know you agree with that, but to what extent is access not being given? What do you think you're missing?
I think we've got pretty much everything covered across the country, which everyone's already seen. We've got clap for carers, we've got reinforcing windows, we've got testing centres, we've got food distribution networks, we've got illustrations of people doing things under lockdown, be it exercising or walking a dog or whatever. We've got Nightingale hospitals in preparation, and once they're open, less patient admission. So you've got hospital beds and ventilators, and you've got a facility that's ready to go. We've got food banks, we've got key workers doing whatever essential work they're doing in a whole manner of areas, from refuse collectors right across to paramedics and police officers. We've got all of that sorted, and that will continue because you don't just stop taking those pictures. But I think it was yesterday, I haven't seen any UK coverage from within an intensive care unit, and that I think is one key area that is imperative to be recorded, documented, photographed. But it's a tricky one. There are obvious and quite clear sensitivities as well as risks to the people involved, health risks that have to be considered. But it's not something which should immediately rule out the opportunity of going to do that.
So I think some people will confuse access and thinking that we have lots of it with the banality of celeb culture. Just because so-and-so from Made in Chelsea complains about press intrusion, we all start to think photographers have far too much access. When actually, when it comes to real news, why are we squeamish about access in the UK? And do you think for some that'll come as a bit of a surprise, Ian, that you're even suggesting we suffer from a form of, with small c, censorship?
I think it's something which has been building over a period of years, and I don't think there's one set thing that was the point at which the tipping point after which everything changed. But there have been a number of things over the years which have contributed, some greater than others, to this overriding thing where, oh no, it's the media is the kind of mindset. And that brings with it straight away sort of barriers and potential hurdles which we have to try and get around in whatever way we can. Yes, it can be a sensitive issue. Yes, it's a difficult issue. Yeah. Yes, not everyone in the country might want to sit down and look at that picture on a newspaper, but it's bigger than that. It's for that purpose, and it's for moving further down the line from a historical point of view as well.
What's your personal feeling toward the disease, insofar as you're seeing more than most and making images? If not the whole access, you're certainly seeing far more than most of us who are being asked to put our camera batteries on charge and just wait it all out. Do you have any personal feelings towards it?
I think it's shown me the best that this country can be, and it's shown me some of the not so good things this country can be.
Yeah.
You know, I've got friends who I know where I live who work for the NHS. You know, they're doctors or they work in that environment, so I can fully appreciate and understand the difficulties that they're going through, and their response and the way they've stepped up to this is quite admirable. Quite clearly, and that is all the key workers across the board. Clearly it's difficult. You know, this is strange for everybody. No one's used to being told, stay in your house, you can't come out apart from this one time to go and walk your dog or go for a run or whatever. So it's putting pressures on people that the vast majority of people would never have had any concept of before this. But on the whole, most people are dealing with it in a very admirable way. Yeah.
I've seen some images coming out of the metropolitan areas in particular, which show the so-called the worst side of it. Do you feel tempted as a photojournalist to name and shame with your pictures in that respect?
I think as a photographer, as a photojournalist, as someone working in the press, we're not creating pictures that are going to be edited to such a degree that it becomes something different. It has to be an accurate recording of what's taking place in front of you. Does that mean that image can't be beautiful to look at in one sense, or as artistic? Of course, as a photographer, you want to try and do that as well. But it has to be an honest representation of what you're looking at. Are there ways to shoot pictures in order to give an effect or to portray something in a way which might not be entirely accurate? Well, yes. Is it something which I would go out and do deliberately in order just to fit some kind of agenda, whether it was something I agreed with or not? No, absolutely not. To the best of my knowledge, every other press photographer would have the same viewpoint.
Well, let's investigate that a bit more. As an image maker, as a reporter of news, there's a responsibility to tell the truth. You've said that, and I can see that in your images. But in the blink of an eye, a frozen moment at, say, 1/500th can completely remove context from a moment. How do you prevent that turning observation into some kind of statement or narrative? Because people, in particular politicians, can do daft stuff that may only last a couple of seconds, but you can make those couple of seconds last much, much, much longer, can't you?
Absolutely, and I think again that's down to maybe the photographer in the first instance, not so much to not take the picture. But in how they then edit it and file a set of pictures afterwards. I mean, I've got pictures on my archives. I've covered a lot of politics, a lot of the party conferences, and I've got pictures of all the main politicians giving a speech or talking, and you can catch them, like you say, in a 500th of a second, and they've just got some weird look on the face, and they just look a bit silly.
Yeah.
That's not because the politicians. That's just everyone who has their face frozen in a picture at that particular time.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to file that and use that picture unless it adds to the story. I'm not just going to say, and here's a picture of so-and-so because they look stupid, because that's irresponsible photography and irresponsible journalism to me.
There are times when I see humour appear in your work. And for example, there's a wonderful image you took, Ian, of a group of men on a march to leave, which I would imagine is a Brexit image. But you position yourself in front of one of our brown tourist information road signs that's pointing humorously to Cuckoo Land. So there's a lot of story. It's become a kind of political comment, and you can actually affect that, can't you, as a photographer, very powerfully.
Yeah, of course. And I think if it's done in a way, I mean, a little bit of humour thrown in the mix of some of these serious subjects when it comes to Brexit is not a bad thing. Let's face it. No. As long as it's not ridiculing an individual or embarrassing somebody in a very clear and obvious way.
I was surprised to see, by the way, in the galleries while we're talking about it, a real diversity of genre and subject matter. I mean, there was a wry smile that you should place weddings next to conflict. But do you think that variety of ability is going to be really essential to photographers now moving forward? That they're not one thing or the other, but they have a real breadth of ability.
I think going forward, life after coronavirus will necessitate that. I've got friends and colleagues who are freelance photographers, and they may do weddings. Now, clearly, their business has been affected quite significantly. Yeah. Same with commercial photographers. So on the other side of it, they're going to have to come out of it, and it might just be that they're able to carry on doing whatever their kind of core business was before it stopped for coronavirus. Alternatively, they may have to spread themselves a little bit wider to cover things they may ordinarily have not really looked at. But as a photographer, the good tools to have. If you photograph a wedding, or you photograph a commercial shoot, or you have to do a portrait, it might be slightly uncomfortable if that's not the world that you work in initially, provisionally. But you can bring what you learn from that into whatever your main kind of business is. And as a news photographer, occasionally you've got to do portraits, you've got to do stuff with sport. You might, you're going into environments that are completely unfamiliar to you, usually, and you've got to try and find nice pictures and make something of that particular opportunity. So the ability to sort of turn your hand, jack of all trades, master of them all if you can. Yeah. But it's not a bad thing to try.
I was looking through the gallery, and your story, The Empty Chair, about your father and his battle with Parkinson's and then dementia was just incredible work, Ian. And your dad passed, I think, last December, didn't he? And it reminded me so much of the film I made with a photographer called Mark Seymour, as he documented his father's battle with dementia. For Mark, I saw his work on this really personal project as part of a coping mechanism. And I wonder what drove you to make that story about Dad. I mean, it must have been a very difficult story to make.
It was strange. I mean, it's because, going back to what we mentioned before with my time in the army, I spend the vast majority of that away. So I probably didn't see my parents as often as most people, or as the majority of people, I guess. So it was quite unusual for me to spend as much time with them as I did. As a photographer, the question of should I make a photographic record of this crossed my mind in about 1,000th of a second. Right. I didn't deliberate. I didn't think for long and hard about should I or shouldn't I. It wasn't a question of it. It was absolutely that I should, because that's what I do. And it's a difficult subject matter, clearly, and it's very close to home. But again, it's very important to do that. Not only for me to have a personal record of that last sort of period of my dad's life, but again, stepping back from the immediate personal nature of it, it's important to have those kind of pictures shot and kept somewhere, because it's part of life, isn't it? And you've got to photograph it.
Did your dad? I know toward the end he wouldn't have, but did your dad have any input into the piece? Did you talk about it at all?
We spoke about it occasionally. He had a very dry sense of humour. Yeah. So he used to kind of play up to the camera a little bit, or do a few little things here and there, which but so you could, and he liked the fact that I was doing it, and I think he appreciated that it was an important thing to do. Yeah. To be honest,
there are some long-term projects in there too. Jurassica, Coast People, amongst them. Which I may be wrongly assuming are non-paying projects, but how important is it to have a project that you think, I've got a long tail thing here? As a creative, are those sort of things important to keep the juices flowing?
No, without a doubt. I think if you've got the time and the opportunity to do a project, whatever it is, you're not gonna lose out as a result. I mean, the ones that you've mentioned, they've been running for quite a while. The Jurassica one I haven't really touched for possibly very close to a year. Right. Just I haven't had the opportunity or whatever. But so what? In 6 months I might go back to it. It's one of these things on the back burner which you can add to. The country show one I did, I've been shooting country shows for a long time, and I love it. I love going to them and seeing the whole environment. I think is really good. And as a photographer, there's a wealth of opportunities to document it.
I don't think there's anything quite like a British country show, is there? This is the stuff that books are made of, isn't it?
It's phenomenal. You could bring someone who had never experienced a country show and plop them down in the middle of it, and they just look around and think, "What? Where have I landed? Some kind of strange planet." Yeah. It brings everything that is quintessentially, and I mean, good or bad, about this country and the nature of our relationship with animals, and it's fascinating to watch that interaction as a photographer.
I've often thought that when you come over to this country as a tourist, don't worry about going to see all the tourist places. Go to a country show, and you'll really see a bit of Britain you'd never thought you'd witness. But
for sure.
Citizen journalism, smartphones, ever smaller capture devices in the hands of the public. Ian, for instance, I'm following a doctor on YouTube who's telling the stories within the hospitals that you'd like to tell. But is this citizen journalism, is it a good thing? Is it helpful? Or does it miss the nuance of a professional's eye?
I think if I think generally it could. There's the risk of it missing the legality of a professional's eye, in the sense that in the ethical eye, because these days it's all too easy to just shoot away in whatever format, and it's on social media, and there it is. It isn't, you can delete it or whatever, but it's been seen, it's whatever. And in the vast majority of cases, that's absolutely fine. Do I see it as a threat to me and what I do? Not really. No, I mean, if something happens and I'm not there, and there's one person with a camera phone to record that one moment of history, then who cares if it was on a camera phone or not? I think the risk is that the ethics and the legality of pictures that are shot by a person who may not understand the legalities and the ethics of taking that picture. I think that's the area that needs work on. If people want to take pictures, great. More people who take photographs, the better. It's great. It's a brilliant thing to do. But if you're going to use those pictures to inform a public through a media platform, then with that comes responsibility, and it has to be taken very seriously. And that's where the professional photographer, the professional reporter, the professional news cameraman, the men and women in the media that do this as a profession, they understand that. And we don't always get it right. I'm not saying everyone in the media is perfect. Clearly, we're just normal people like everyone else. But at least we have an understanding, an acknowledgement that it needs to be considered.
Now, we're reasonably brand agnostic when it comes to talking to people such as yourself and learning more about photography. So forgive me for a kit question, but I'm going to slip one in as a final question. I think I noted, looking at your various galleries, Ian, that you shoot a real variety of kit. I spotted the Army Standard issue Nikons, plenty of red spots in there for Leica, a Sony or two, but a healthy number of Fuji film bodies and lenses.
Yes,
and I wonder what was the thinking behind it, because sometimes I see you sporting a Fuji film alongside something else with a longer lens on it. And when do you use them and what for?
I'm an impoverished freelance, so I don't have much money at all, clearly. And these are just what I can afford at a time that I think I'm going to need it. When I left the army, I was straight on Nikons because that's what I was familiar with. Yeah. The Nikons that I got, I had a couple of D3 and a D3S, I think it was. Right. And they were fairly battered because I got them second hand, and they needed upgrading. And I simply couldn't afford to drop at that time, I don't know, was it 12 grand or whatever it was on a couple of new bodies or whatever. And I'd been looking at the Fuji system, and I've moved to Fuji complete. So away went the Nikons, in came a couple of X Pro 1s. And then on I went to a number of different news jobs, feeling slightly undergunned, to be fair. Right. And in those early days of Fuji, there was a lot of choice words being used to shout at your cameras, because obviously if you shout at your cameras, they work better, clearly. And because they weren't quite there, but I stayed with them, and I moved through XT1s and then onto X Pro 2s. And was happy once we got X Pro 2s. The quality was there, the speed was there. There were some areas potentially I wasn't quite happy with, and I'm purely talking from a professional news angle. Do you know what I mean? When you need everything to be firing on full cylinders. Yeah. But the one thing that I found that I was missing was the ability to live file. Right. Some of the political jobs and news jobs, I could see that colleagues from other agencies who are friends, there's healthy rivalry there, clearly, because that's the business we're in. But we're all decent mates up here. And they were live filing pictures, and I was losing out as a result. So I had to sort of bite the bullet, and I made the call to move to Sony, partly because of obviously they're mirrorless, like the Fujis, which I like. A little bit cheaper than the Canons and Nikon top end. And everything I'd heard from colleagues who were using them were that they were really good performers. So I made the big financial jump to Sony, and I've had those now for 6 months, maybe 5-6 months, and I'm getting on really nicely with them. Really good.
My thanks to Ian Forsyth for his time in talking to us for the FujiCast Daily just a couple of days ago, as it goes. Right, that's it for Sunday. We'll be back tomorrow, of course, and it's the last week of Kev's Daily Photo Challenge. We've only got to do 5 more, Kev. 5 more. Can you hang in there? 5 more.
Yeah, I'm going to do numbers.
What?
Starting at 1.
Monday is number 1. Tuesday, you've got a photograph, something to do with the number 2. That could be awkward. Wednesday, you've got to do... Yes, I see where it's going. No, I'd like you to be more creative, please. Have a nice Sunday.
Bye-bye.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production.
Goodbye, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. We're back tomorrow with the show.
Well, unless we're fired, we'll talk to you then. Goodbye, sweetheart, goodbye.
Goodbye.